A very good morning and a very good morning to everyone who just woke up. And I hope the rest of you all who attended your morning classes had a good first half. And I welcome all of you to Innovate UI UX, a mini workshop that would be perfect for all of you to get acquainted with the world of UI and get started with Figma as well. Speaking of design, it's more than just aesthetics. It affects how people feel and act, making a good product great. Although there are many excellent designs out there, it's the design process is usually just a mess. There's a never-ending back and forth, endless final versions are saved, and nobody ever has the right font. So before we jump onto Figma, let's talk about what UI is. A user interface is usually the point of contact between the user and the device. And the whole purpose of a good UI design is to create a visually appealing interface that will guide the user seamlessly through their interactions with the product. A good UI design a good UI design usually determines the success of a product because that's what improves the functionality and also adds to the user experience. Wait, user experience? That sounds familiar, doesn't it? Yep, that's exactly what UX stands for. But why is it necessary for UI to add to the user experience? Well, let me give you a simple example. So you can see this vase or a kettle right here on your screen, and I'm sure a few of you are quite confused of what this really is. Well, this is, I mean, it looks really beautiful, but this is what a beautiful UI but bad UX would look like in real life. What is the point of it if it looks so appealing, but if it makes the user struggle? So that is exactly why UX is crucial to ensure that the user can navigate through the product easily and efficiently. UX is all about understanding the users and their needs by empathizing with them, and it's then possible to create a user-centered design that enhances their experience with the product. So by mastering these two design disciplines, it's possible to create beautiful, intuitive, and effective interfaces that users will fall in love with. But where do we start our journey with mastering these skills? Well, there are quite a few software and apps, like you can see on screen right now. There's Sketch, there's InVision, there's Framer, but we all know and love this last one, Figma. But to some of you out there wondering, what really is Figma? So Figma is a vector design tool that runs in the browser. You can use Figma to come up with ideas, change designs, make prototypes, and get feedback at various different stages of the creative process. And also, don't worry, we'll be covering the basics of Figma and how to implement your ideas into the workspace in this very beginner-friendly session as well. So if you haven't already, go ahead and sign up for a free Figma account at figma.com. And with the Figma account, you can also create shared workspaces, and you can collaborate on files with your friends and peers, and you can organize your projects. So if any one of you hasn't already created a Figma account, go ahead and do that quickly. And let's get started with the basics of Figma. Right. So I hope all of you have created your Figma account. It's absolutely free as well. Right. So let's move ahead with the basics of Figma. First of all, the very basics of it, the canvas. What you see on screen right now, the blank gray space. So it's the backdrop for all of your designs. That's where you'll add all your frames, your shapes, your text, your images. There are no bounds to your creativity, but you should remember that it only extends 65,000 pixels in both directions. So you might think, okay, so we've got the canvas, we can probably just dump everything onto the canvas, but that would get quite messy, wouldn't it? So that's why we use containers called frames. And again, for the purpose of this tutorial, we'll be using a very simple poster design for another event, another tech loop that we're going to be conducting today in the evening. So don't forget to tune in for that as well. Rohit and Ravin from the senior conducting it. Right. So talking about frames. Frames are the containers that we would place our shape, text, and image layers in. So you can think of each frame as uh, a separate screen on your canvas, and each of them could be considered an individual screen of the tools. So if you click on the frame tool over here, and then you just it creates a frame of the shape that you're dragging. This frame isn't, well, it doesn't have the exact dimensions that we would need. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to choose the frame tool and then look at the right side toolbar over here. And we can see there are a lot of different different templates that we can choose from. So I'm going to go ahead in social media and choose post. And now you can see that has done two things. One, it has created an empty frame for us to work on. And on the layers panel on the left side here, you can see that it has created another layer. And this layer panel, in fact, is the most important when it comes to organizing your project. You can see all the different components of your project over here, and you can rearrange them and make sure that your the file organization is on point. So now now you can see the frame on your screen, but like, how would you move around? How would you look at the rest of the canvas? So to explore the rest of the canvas, we can use two fingers on a trackpad to zoom in and out, or you can use the scroll wheel on your mouse pad to move up and down. And you can also press down on the middle mouse button and drag around to move around the canvas. And you can also use the control button and scroll up and down to zoom in and out as well. So now that we know how to get around the canvas, now let's add a few more layers to our frame. So talking about adding frames and adding elements, let's start off quite simple. I hope you can all see the rectangle tool on the toolbar. It's again very simple to use. All you do is to choose the tool and then drag on screen to create the rectangle that you would want. And you can see that every time you add another shape, it creates another layer on the layer panel. And you can see, just like any other element, this rectangle, the moment you create it, you see that it has dimensions over here. So the X and Y would tell its positioning, while the width and the height would specify its dimensions. You can always use these cursors to drag around and change the size, or you could always just type in the exact values and it'll show up on screen. So coming back to the layers panel that you see on the left, we can see that the rectangle that we created is within our first frames. So some layers, for example, frames, can contain other layers within them. And if we move our rectangle outside the frame, then that will get updated on the panel too, just like this. And if you move it back in, it gets back into the frame. It's as simple as that. So that is how you ensure that your project is always very well organized. So now you can also see that when we move this rectangle around the frame, you can see there are little orange lines that pop up. So this is what helps us align the shapes to the background or to the frame in the background. So for now, let's keep it at the center. Right. So now let's work with a few more elements. In the poster, there are circles in the middle with faces on them. So to represent that, let's just use a circle for now. So you can't see the circle on the toolbar right now, but if you just click on this little arrow mark beside the rectangle tool, there's an ellipse icon. You choose this and drag on screen, it creates an ellipse for you, but it isn't in proportion. So all you need to do is just start that over again, select the ellipse tool, and when you drag on screen, just hold down the shift button to ensure that it stays in proportion. And then you can resize it accordingly. Again, make sure you hold down shift and then place it in the center using the alignment tools that Figma has built in. And if we update the values here on the sidebar, let's say we make the size 180, that will get updated in the design as well. by default, all the shapes are just a very boring gray color. Bring it to life. So what we can do is there is a fill tab over here, and as of now, it's in the default color of gray. So you have a wide range of colors that you can choose from, but usually the best way to go about it is to use the color picker and look at a color that you would like. Let's say I like this blue color, and all I need to do is click on it, and it updates it onto the frame. So it's adding color to the frame. And let's say, well, this is just a plain fill. It doesn't look that interesting. So what we can do is all you need to do is go to the stroke tab, open it up, and by default it creates a black thickness one. The more thickness you add, the thicker it gets, obviously. And you can also choose the color that you would want the outline to be. And yeah, so this basically is like a border around the layer. So now adding text, an integral part of any design. All you need to do is use the text tool, click on screen, and then go ahead typing. It's as simple as that. And then once you're done, you can see that tab that opens up on your right side panel. So this is like whenever you use Word or PowerPoint, you can edit the font, you can edit the size of the font, and you can edit the alignment as well. It's as simple as that. So now let's use our alignment tools instead of just dragging around to align the layers to the center. So what we did till now was look at these orange lines and follow them. But what we can also do is look at this alignment panel over here. You can see various different options. So they're quite self-explanatory. You use align left, it aligns to the left. And there are various horizontal and vertical alignment tools. So for now, let's keep it centered in terms of the vertical and a little higher up. So that would be ideal. And then the circle as well. You can move it around accordingly, but for now, we're going to keep it dead center. So later, if we want to make small changes to the alignment of the layer's position, we can always use the arrow keys on the keyboard to nudge it around the canvas. And yeah, it's as simple as that. So now coming to duplicating layers, sometimes it just doesn't make sense to keep creating new layers over and over again, right? So Figma very conveniently has a duplicating option. It's as simple as hold down the Alt button or Option if you're on a MacBook and click and drag, and it will create an identical copy, and you can place it wherever you want accordingly. And another way of doing this would just be to select the layer you want to duplicate and then use Control D or Command D, and that'll create a duplicate but on top of the previous one. So then you just drag it to the side, and then that's there as well. So, and then again, you can use your alignment tools to align them accordingly. And yeah, it's as simple as that. And then obviously we always have our handy copy paste option, and you can always use that as well. So next, we're going to come to a little more of organizing. You can see that we've created two of these circles. Let's place it apart. And now we want to align both of them to the center together. But that would be difficult to predict where the center would be and then align them accordingly. So usually the best way to do this would be grouping layers. Since both of these are essentially the same thing, and we want to align them together, we're gonna use Shift and click on the second layer to make sure we select both of them, and then use the shortcut Control G or Command G. And now you can see that both on the layer panel and in the design itself, a group has been created, which you can then move around, and both the circles will move around together. And then if you use your alignment tools, you can always align them perfectly to where you'd like them. And yeah, don't forget, it's always very essential to use our layers panel to organize our project. Otherwise, within no time, you're going to see that it's become really, really messy. So I I think that covers up all the very basics of the design part of Figma. And another great feature that Figma has is that it is so easy to work with your peers. Figma was designed for real-time collaboration, which means we can work together with our peers on the same file simultaneously. We can see what our peers are doing in real time, and they can see the changes that you make to them as well. And you can just click on this option over here, and the screen will pop up, and it works similar to your Google Docs or Google Sheets, wherein you choose if they can only edit it or if they can only view it, and then you copy the link and then you send it to them. It's as simple as that, and you can work together in real time. So other than working with peers, you could also be working with, let's say, clients, and they can also. So Figma has another good feature where you can add in comments at any point of the design, and something like make the BG black, and somebody could have left that comment there for me. And later, when I come back to the design to work later with it, I can just click on this comment and see what they have to say for it. It's a great way to provide feedback and or even ask questions about a specific element. And you can also receive notifications when somebody leaves a comment on your design. So all of it just adds to the efficiency of Figma. So now that we've covered most of the basics of the design aspect of Figma, uh, let's move on to how to work more efficiently with Figma. So when we think of efficiency, always the go-to is plugins on Figma. This is what really makes Figma so much more powerful, because sometimes it just doesn't make sense to do everything manually. So you use plugins to extend the functionality of Figma and automate the repetitive work. There's a huge library of plugins on Figma that can be installed with just a few clicks. And what you can also do is go to the toolbar and use this, and you've got a whole list. So some of the most popular ones are Iconify, Unsplash, and Remove BG. Uh, Speaking of Iconify, Iconify is an iconic plugin in Figma where you can just find any and every icon that you would need. Uh, I can't seem to find it right now. So let's move on. So then another really popular one is Unsplash. That's a huge library of uh, not exactly royalty free, but very high quality stock images that you can just add on to your design with just a few clicks. Uh, Usually plugins take a little bit of time to load up because of internet usage. And there's another plugin, Remove BG, which is quite popular for Right. I'm sorry about that, guys. VIT Wi-Fi giving issues as usual. Uh, right. So we were at yeah. So uh, I'm just gonna continue again from the plugin because I think that's where I got cut off. So Iconify. Iconify is an iconic plugin of Figma. options, and it's just going to give it to you. And it's as simple as a you click on import icon and it imports it into your design file, and then it imports it as a vector, so you can change the colors, you can resize it. It's really simple to use. And then there is Unsplash. Unsplash is a library of high quality stock images that you can just simply add to your design without any repercussions. And Unsplash has a remove background functionality that I'm sure a lot of you have already used. It's as simple as you click remove BG and it removes the background for you. And I'm sure a lot of you use the browser to go and upload the image and then download the new image. Instead of all of that hassle, all you need to do is use the plugin that's inbuilt into your Figma. So, well, yeah, so the plugins in general just make your workflow really, really efficient, and it saves you a lot of time as well. So, coming back to efficiency, another really good way of improving your efficiency while working in Figma is just using the Figma community. Figma has one of the strongest communities out there of designers, and the Figma community space that would look like this when you first go onto it. Uh, it has, let's say, thousands of free design files and plugins. And other than the ones already built into Figma, there are a lot of them that creators share as well. And you can just scroll through or search for something that you're looking for, and then just simply duplicate it and add it into your design, or just copy it and then edit it to suit your needs. But that way you don't have to start from scratch, and it's a great place to look for inspiration. So I'd really recommend any of you starting out, or even with quite some experience in Figma, but you haven't experienced the community and looked through it, go onto it, explore, and see what you can get from it. It's really, really helpful. So coming back to working efficiently, uh, we have something called components that we use in our designs. So when you have a certain refresh icon in your website, and you'd like for example, the one on Google, no matter what website you go on to, the refresh icon is always the same. So there are certain components in a design that need to be the same everywhere. You need to use it repetitively. So what you do for these is you create components, and these components remain uniform throughout. And then you can make your programming consistent, and you can allow for easy updating. And trust me, that saves you a lot of work while working. And it's usually mostly used for toolbars and menus and buttons and icons, where you need to keep it uniform throughout. So yeah, that's about components. And then you have something called variants. So sometimes you need a certain icon to look a little different in a different context. So a very simple way of putting it would be something like this. You need to customize your drink, and these are all the various options you have. You have a milk tea, a green tea, a fruit tea, and then you can add different components into it. So the best way to have that would have multiple components ready, and then you can just merge them or combine them to create variants that you can use in different contexts for different ideas, let's say. So yeah, that's quite that makes your workflow quite simple as well. So then moving on to one of the most convenient features of Figma, or at least I feel personally, is auto layout. Auto layout is what lets you create dynamic frames that can grow or shrink as you change the content within it. And this is really a vast improvement, as it says it'll save you tons of time in readjusting the frame sizes and the content inside. And the most important part is that you can make sure that your design works well with with real content with just one click. So let me just show you how it works. You go, let's say you create a button over here, and what you need to do is, if it isn't already in auto layout, all you do is you click Shift plus A, which will create a dynamic frame, which you can see here. It's called frame one. And then you can see there are a lot of different options that you now have. And there's a whole auto layout tab over here. So the auto layout tab has a bunch of features. There is a direction which you can specify that to go in a certain direction, either upwards or sideways. So you use the direction for that. The spacing between decides how much space is between each and every component in the frame, not just between two of them. So that way you maintain your uniformity. The padding decides the space between the component and the edge of the frame. And again, it is uniform throughout. So it'll maintain the uniformity of your design. And the alignment will decide where in the frame or what part of the frame your dynamic frame has to be aligned to. So you can see there is quite some padding on both sides. But what if I add in content? Won't it become uncentered, or won't it go off center? So that is why, again, auto layout is the best feature personally for me. You add in a little more text, and you can see that the padding increases accordingly. And similarly, you can then go to the auto layout tab on the frame, and then you can move the button to align to the frame behind. And you can also change the padding and the space between from these options over here. Then we have the content expanding according to our design. So let's say below this welcome to Innovate UI UX text, I wanted to add another text that says hashtag stay in the loop. But if I would do that in regular frame, it would just go out of frame, and then you would have to resize the frame and the square on top to all align accordingly. But with auto layout, it's as simple as, if I duplicate this layer, you can see that the frame has expanded accordingly. And I didn't have to do any of the resizing myself. And then I just changed the text to hashtag stay in the loop. Now, moving on to spacing. So as I spoke about spacing earlier, you can just select the frame, and the direction tool comes handy when implementing designs onto websites. One simple click can change the arrangement from a horizontal one to a vertical one. It's as simple as that. And you can always change the spacing between these cards by this pink color thing in between, or you can always use the values over here on the side and enter in manually, and it will change the gap accordingly. So you can stack up these cards, and then you can keep them really far apart as well, all with a simple drag of the mouse or entering values onto the panel on the side. Now, there are two types of spacing options that you would have. The one is called packed and one is called space between. So if I select my dynamic frame and I go to the three options over here, you can see right now the spacing mode isn't packed. So if I were to expand this, all the content inside the dynamic frame would still be stuck to each other. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the spacing mode to space between. So you can see I have two frames inside this frame. One is the card on top and one is the button. So now when I increase the size, you can see that the space has come in between. And this is usually really useful when you're implementing drop-down menus and other menus of such sort. And alignment, as I said, another really convenient option. You don't have to go move it around manually just to get the exact right spot. All you need to do is use the alignment option in the auto layout tab. You move it around, and the content inside will align itself accordingly. and same goes for any other content that you put inside a dynamic frame. And one of another important feature of auto layout is the hug contents option. You can see that here this rectangle has its height fixed, which is why these two squares are kind of overflowing out of the box. But if I were to change that to hug contents, no matter what contents you add or remove from inside the frame, the outer frame is always going to just resize itself to make sure that it stays right outside whatever content you've put inside. So if I were to remove this particular rectangle, the outside frame will resize itself accordingly to whatever content is left inside or whatever has been added into the frame. So auto layout in general makes your workflow so much more easier. You don't have the hassle of aligning content. You don't have the hassle of making sure the design works well in real-time implementation. And yeah, so now we're going to be moving on to wireframing, and now I'd like Purvashri to take over the session from here.
Thank you, Ashish. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'll be taking the session from now on. So, what exactly is wireframing? So, a wireframe is a schematic or blueprint that is useful for helping you, your programmers, and your designers think and communicate about the structure of the software or website you are building. So, wireframes are of three types: low fidelity, mid fidelity, and high fidelity. Low fidelity is the initial glance of a future product and help team members evaluate design ideas and concepts. Mid fidelity basically represents the middle ground between a low fidelity and a high fidelity prototype. And high fidelity is a realistic prototype that closely resembles the final design of the project. So, as you can see here, here is a mid fidelity of a website. It's a sample wireframe. Here you can see we have used assets and components. This is the whole mid fidelity of a website, and you can just add pictures and add components and make it a high fidelity website. So now our topic is design system. A design system is a set of guidelines, rules, and principles that govern how a brand or product is designed and developed. Okay, so let me remind you all, design systems are not UI kits. UI kits are basically pre made sets of user interface elements like buttons, icons, typography, styles that can be used to create consistent visual design across a product or website. Basically, a UI kit is a part of design system. So yeah, this is the famous atomic design by Brett Frost. It is a visual identity system methodology that separates the entire process when developing visual systems in a more organized way. Like, for example, see, as you can see here, a search icon and an input box are two separate atoms. If we put them together, it's a search box, and you have got yourself a molecule. Now add a block of content below the search bar, and now you have created a template. If we add text here, an image, it becomes a complete page. So this is how that atomic design work. And if you want to learn more about design systems, you can just go through this website called Design Systems. It's just like the Chat GPT for the GitHub repository for the designers. Like all the designers upload their repo here, and you can download the components. Rather than making the components, you can just download them from here. Like core components, you can clearly see the core components of a design system. So now moving on, prototyping. So prototyping is the process of designing an optimal experience for target users. You can see an example of prototyping here. I can clearly move through the screens. Isn't this amazing? Like, you get to see how an app works basically without the backend or the front end. So how to do prototyping? I have copied a template here. So you first go to prototype, select the frame, select the button you want to click, and that will move to the next screen like this. Drag it. Then move to the next frame. Again, repeat this process with every button. Now what happened here is we basically connected all the four frames. It's like if we click on fade, it will open this page. If we click content, it will open the market one. If we click on sign in, sorry, if we click on market, it will open the market tab. If we click on sign in, it will open the sign in tab. So again, if we have to bring in this tab, if we have to open fade, again we have to connect this fade to the fade frame. Repeat this for every frame. So once all the lines are joined, you can play this prototype. You can play it from here or from here. I'm going to play it from here directly. So yeah, as you can see, if you press content, there you can that's how you make a prototype. So now one of the very up to the market topic we're talking about, it's smart animation. Smart animation can map layers with matching names between two Figma frames basically, and integer and render animation frames between the two states. If you use a different animation type such as move in, you can still use it in conjunction with smart animation to animate matching layers. One example I can show is, this is a loader. This is a smart animation. So how to make a smart animation? So I'll start from scratch. So we make an eclipse of dimension say 200 to 200, and using the arc option, basically make a circle. Then to make it more visible, we will use an angular gradient. It may be purple and white. So we make this eclipse, we add this as a component, we'll create it as a component and add variant. We'll duplicate this variant. Sorry. Yeah, as you can see, this is the default component, and we have made three variants of this one. So we'll go to select this eclipse, and like we have to make sure we select the eclipse, not the whole variant, to change the direction. Yeah. Um, so I'll rename it as like loader 2.0. So you can see this component here in assets. If you open it, you can see say loader 2.0. So how to use this loader in our frame is we basically import a frame, maybe change its color to black, and then from here assets we drag it here. Then to play this one, we go to prototyping, we select this frame, flow starting point, we add a flow here. We can rename it easily, like let's say loader 2.0 itself, and then we can play this prototype. Oh, I'm so sorry guys, we have to add the prototyping. We click here, we select this frame and connect it here. In this interaction details, we have to select on after delay, change the timing to 1 ms, select smart animate here, linear 300 ms. So we have to repeat this for every circle. After delay 1, smart animate, and yeah. Once this is done, just repeat this process. From assets, you can easily do this. There you have it. It's a smart animation of a loader. You can use it while like if we say if you are like moving to a different, you can see in apps, right, that the page is loading. So how it's made in Figma, now you have it. So there's another example I can give you, is like in this prototype you can see, if I this is selected, right, smart animate matching layers. We have I'll show you probably if I play this one. See, if I click on sign in, observe the above status bar. When the second frame comes in, the status bar also moves, right? So we don't want that. That doesn't happen in our phone. So how to like make it properly, so we do is that simple prototyping. Select this one. We have to make sure that this layer and this layer name is same. So we will check it. This is status bar, and if you select here you can see it's also status bar, so the name should be the same, otherwise it won't happen. Because Figma recognizes the same name thing. So we click on prototype, we drag, like if we click on sign in, we drag this bar, we do these things. Then interaction details, that's it. On click, move in, we will do this move in. Move in is basically, you can see this animation, it comes from right to left. There are different options, it's from left to right also, down to bottom, bottom to up. We will do the basic right to left move in, and we will select smart animate matching layers. So if we click this option and then we play the prototype, observe the status bar now, it doesn't move, and voila, you have it. That's how smart animation works. So yeah, so that's it for our Figma session. In case you guys wanna go through our resources and learn from our um, page, you can scan this QR code, and this will provide you all the resources that you need to get started with design and 3D and anything. So thank you guys. Do you have any questions for us? Any questions for us regarding Figma or UI UX, how to get started or anything?
At whatever point you're watching this video in the future, if you have any questions for us, you can always leave it in the comment section, and we'll be more than happy to get back to you guys with answers. But anybody in the live viewing right now has any questions, you can go ahead and put it in the live chat.
We also have a TechLoop community that you guys can go through. We are live there almost 24 into 7 if you have any doubts. Okay, so Lanka has asked, is Figma the only option for things such as this? Ashish, do you want to take it up?
Well, sure. So, other than Figma, there are a few other options such as Sketch, Framer. But again, all of these they used to be quite popular before Figma became a thing in 2016ish. But now, since Figma has all the features of all of these different design apps combined in one, and it also has the feature of working in real time with all of your collaborators, it just doesn't make sense to use any other software or app or website other than Figma. So my strong recommendation would be to just use Figma, but you can always explore these other apps such as Framer, Sketch, etc.
Okay, so we have our Discord link if anyone wants to try that. mm, Go to the IEEE TechLoop community. You guys can access it through this link. I hope you guys take a screenshot of this one.
I think we have another question from Pratij Das of this. He wants to know the name of the software. Well, the name of the software is Figma, and it is the best way to get started with design. And in general, this is what is used in the industry as well. So it's a very handy tool to get acquainted with.
Yeah, it's a very versatile tool. You can do anything in Figma, from prototyping to simple designing, anything.
Yep, you can see the link in the chat right now. Go ahead and join our Discord community, and feel free to post your questions there, interact with like-minded individuals, all of that good stuff.
I think we don't have any more questions. Can you share some useful plugins? Yeah, definitely. Iconify is a great plugin for mockups. There is Mockup Studio. Then, um, and I can show you some plugins here currently. Unsplash is a great plugin. Arc. I use lorem ipsum to like generate random text. It's a great one. You can take a screenshot of all these plugins, or if you want, you can just go through again. Again, visit our resource page. It has everything you will need to get started with Figma. So I think you guys can see a feedback form. Uh, your comments and suggestions play a very important role. Please do fill that form, and hope you all have learned something new from this session. Thank you for tuning in.
And make sure you fill in the feedback form because that will count for your attendance as well.
Thank you guys. Have a nice day ahead.